Hello, welcome everyone. Namaste. Welcome to our last chapter in The Nature of Consciousness by Rupert Spira. And welcome, Andrea, our guest host today. We're
Thank you.
expecting we're expecting Anneke. She hasn't shown up. She said she would be here. She hasn't shown up, so we'll see if she drifts in or maybe something else came up for her. But I want to welcome you, Andrea, and
Thank
all
you.
of our viewers on the show today. The last chapter is chapter 18, and it is, what's the name of it? The Search
Search
for
for
Happiness.
happiness.
The Search for Happiness. It's such a perfect intro or segue. Actually, the new book that we're going to start on April 18th is a perfect next content, the next book to follow following this last chapter. And I have completely loved this last chapter. It has when it's like each one builds on the other, and there's some, even though he keeps saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over, because it takes that to maybe get it in, or it's just this, it's the point of content from which all the rest of the content really encompasses or surrounds the point of this one content, which is awareness, and then all the different ways and facets to notice it, to self-realize what is the main point, is to look at it in all of these different ways. And then also you look at it from the standpoint of just the characteristic of consciousness, and you look at it from the experience of consciousness, and you also look at it from the experience of the finite self, which is that aspect of consciousness, and all of these different holographic ways to see this, really the directing of this, the not the directing, but the noticing and also the experiencing of the infinite self being experienced in a finite self, and at the same time, I don't know, I think this content is just really just it's it's really settled for me the ideas that the course that I've been following for 10 years has been pointing to. These descriptions and the way Rupert puts it has allowed me to experience what I've been following in a very visceral kind of a knowing way, so that it's not a concept anymore. It's the experience that I've always been looking for, that now someone like Rupert has put an understanding so that I can have the experience to the concepts that I've been following that I knew were true, but I wasn't having the direct experience yet until I found Rupert. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to the last chapter of today's The Nature of Consciousness. And I hope you guys will continue to join us on the next book that starts in April. And so, what do you think about this chapter? Andrea, what do you think? What are your highlights on this chapter?
Well, I love the just the statement that to obtain happiness is the ultimate purpose for human existence. And there is that constant desire. I don't know a single person that doesn't desire to be happy, and not realizing that in truth, we are the happiness that we seek. And we've overlooked that aspect of ourselves in getting so seamlessly involved in the finite mind with its thoughts and feelings and perceptions, and just getting so pulled into the details and and you know what consciousness created was so beautiful, is this world, and how would you not get pulled into the beauty of it? And but for me, the always being attracted to the beauty of this world, and always looking for what's beautiful in everything that I'm seeing, um, led me to art, led me to the art of holistic healing. It led me to finding that love within. And this is really addressing that the experience of moving through that process of realizing that, you know, this world can, like he says in the book too, like it can be the spider web that we get caught in, not realizing that that beautiful spider web, this beautiful world actually came, you know, the spider web came from the spider and the world came from us, you know. And I say us with quotation marks around it, because there's really just the one consciousness being shared on all these beautiful, intimate levels of love, really. And that, you know, he reflects on in moments of his life where people were cantankerous, you know, the art teachers he's worked with, or chapter 5, he talked about going to a lecture hall and bringing up this awareness piece, and, you know, the lecturer, you know, kind of pushing that off to the side, and because he didn't really understand it and he didn't want to admit that, so he just, you know, basically kind of excused his Rupert's intention in what he was offering. And I'm sure that as we have all been moving with this work and speaking to people who are not necessarily seeing the world from this perspective, can feel the same way as Rupert felt in that lecture hall, just kind of excused and not really understood. So this process of this book and in this chapter is really drawing everyone to a clearer understanding of this truth. And for me, it's being able to appreciate the beauty of the world, or the seeming existence of Andrea and all the people that I've dreamed with myself in this process, and just appreciating all of them for this beautiful moment of self-realization, and which is really self-awareness, of the awareness of being aware of myself as the truth and the reality of it all, and not feeling confused by it, and being able to truly take in that whole, noticing that there were many places in life where we're maybe not so patient or kind, or wanting things to change, not realizing that the change is really within us. And I, at this point, have the experience of, whenever I run into something that seems to be difficult, accepting it exactly as it is, and loving it exactly as it is, knowing that it's exactly as it is, because it's I'm going to use the term, waking me up even more to my remembrance. And that my whole life, every detail has brought me to this place where I can love everybody where they are. I don't need anybody to be different than where they are, how they are. And in doing that, and it seems like a doing, although it isn't, it's just more of a being of myself more and more, is that I've become the love that I was seeking. And I truly don't need anybody to be different than they are. I know that when people are ready when the tension, as explained in this chapter, gets so great that it needs release, as Rupert says in the chapter, this is available to every single being, and every single being has that free will to seek themselves out, but not through the world, but by going past that mind and relaxing and deeper into themselves, into the awareness of themselves. And the awareness brings the information into even the finite awareness.
Yeah.
So that it begins to see the correlation of details and how incredibly beautifully and intricately detailed the causing of us to remember is done so perfectly and individually and individualized as well. I'm
Yeah.
sure your remembrance is, in your experiences, are very seemingly different than mine, yet here we are sitting together having this beautiful experience. And I really do feel that I have really learned love.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, love is the acceptance and the allowance and the embracing and truly the trust that
Mm-hmm.
everything is perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so my wound is not wide open and bleeding, but it was the wounded part of me that created the access for this to happen.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things, it's funny. When I was reading, I'm going to go towards the back of this chapter, and there was
yeah.
something you just said that reminded me of a a reminiscence that I had from page 193 when Rupert was talking about hooking up with. He did that. He had a walk with this guy that
Mm-hmm.
is he mentions in the I think in the fifth chapter he met up with Bernardo
Mm-hmm.
Castrop, and they were taking a walk, and he went to all these different various things. He went to the head shop, and he saw the bungee jumpers, and he saw these people, and then he talks about the different addictions that we have.
Mm-hmm.
That is really just that it's the seeking of the infinite self that is in common with every one of them. And
Yeah.
as I read this, I thought, oh my God. Yeah, and it's really about all addictions. All addictions are the seeking of the infinite self experience to be even momentarily relived, whether it's a pill or sex or a bungee jump or skydiving or whatever. They're all the same. It's the attraction back to the self. And I thought about the generation that I come from and that you come from, the generation of the hippie era,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole worldwide phenomenon is a collective consciousness looking and expressing itself in search of this infinite self of the being. And I feel that even though they call that the baby boom generation, and it was post the war, the couple of World War I and World War II, because it was that, oh my God, conflict and fighting and surrender that turned into this seeking for another way, seeking for the happiness that we've all been looking for. And so when I was reading this, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about my own drug use at that age. And it was just, I really made me look at my own drug use differently. And then I have one of my kids is into what I was into, and she's just doing the same thing that I was doing 40 years, 50 years ago. I was, she's seeking after her infinite self of the being, and it makes you see things. It makes you see the experience that our culture, that society, that our other beings are having in a whole different way. They're just in their evolutionary process of of seeking of the self that we all are just we're drawn to that. And I just really I love how his his kind of talking about it in this chapter made it caused me to go back and actually do a little video in my mind of that experience and have a whole new appreciation for addictions and for the attraction for all these different things. Or, the bungee jumper is no different than a heroin addict. They're the same. It's just looking for that infinite self, which we all will self-realize eventually. Everyone will self-realize that experience of our true divine nature. Yeah.
Yeah, and in relation to all that, Bill, too, we talk about the end of the two major world wars, but during the time that you're talking about, as we were growing up, there was another war, the Vietnam War, that we were actually watching now on television.
Yes.
The first televised war. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember being so devastated by that and how disruptive that was to my household. My father wanting my oldest brother to go to war, and my brother saying, "No, I'm going to Canada. I don't believe in this." And and the civil rights movement and the assassinations. It was like this beautiful opening and this huge collapse at the same time. With the violence and the deaths and the assassinations and Kennedy and Martin Luther King and at the same time, peace, war, and peace and war were sort of coexisting at the same time.
Yes.
And we were marching for peace. And as you're marching for peace, you're looking at violence for this need for peace. This contrast was so in our face. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it was certainly for me, I spent a lot of time crying about it and having difficulty with it and worrying. It brought up a lot of worry for me. It felt so out of control. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, I think that, some of the people who did drugs didn't want to feel that fear of being out of control too. And, and I was listening, on Sirius XM radio, they have a Beatles station now, which I love the Beatles. So anyway, the John Lennon song was on. It says, singing at that time, all you need is love, mm-hmm. and give peace a chance. And as I was listening to the song, All You Need Is Love, I said, no, John, who I knew in my lifetime and was a client of mine in New York and stuff when I lived there. And I was saying, no, John, it's not all we need is love. I kept, as he was singing it on the song, I was singing my own version. All I am is love. Dun, da, 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 da. All I am is love. So that, and it fits into this because it's not something that I'm seeking or needing. I am that now. Yeah. And I feel it's so simple. My life is so simple now and so at peace and so accepting. I never believed that was going to be possible, particularly growing up in a generation where there was such constant contrast. Mm-hmm. But I believe in each of those contrasts, we're really able to see that part of ourselves that was angry and wanted to strike out, and the other part that was seeking and desiring the love and that peace and the release of that tension that was going on. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was beautiful.
The tension was necessary to bring us to the state. I mean, it's all on purpose. Even as we look at what's happening today, there's nothing. Mm-hmm. It's an accident. Everything is a cause and effect, or a contraction and then an expansion, and it's getting more and more. I mean, if you look at where we were, look at where consciousness was even 100 years ago, it's like we're moving at light speed to this new experience that was unheard of 50 years ago. 50 years ago, what we talk about today and the kinds of things, like, I mean, not just the technology experience like we're having right now, but also what are we talking about? And this is happening in hundreds of thousands of computers, if not millions, right now around the world.
Right. But throughout all time, though, at the same time, there has always been those who have known this. who have experienced it, who've written about it, who've, for a long time it was, in the East and not in the West, because the East was more developed in so many ways. And then it's making its way west. And I go back to the little analogy that Rupert uses a lot of times, and is the elastic, where it can be stretched and there's so much tension, but at some point it just wants to relax and go back to itself. It can do all these things, but it doesn't particularly, it takes a lot of energy to do that and to stay in that, oh, she's here.
Oh, good. Anneke is here. Yes.
Yes.
Rupert uses the ball a lot too. Hi, Anneke.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi, Anneke.
Hello. You're early.
We're early. No. We're on daylight savings time in the U.S.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah.
That's where you were. We've started the webinar. Yeah, we're 20 minutes in.
Oh shit.
That too.
Yeah. I was having a quick dinner. Wait 1 second. I'll put it in the kitchen. 1 second.
So funny. That's funny. Well, that's where you were.
Yeah. Everything's on time.
Everything's on time.
See, Tom, we just keep moving it around because it doesn't mean anything.
This is funny.
So good to see you. Yeah, we moved our clock ahead last week.
Oh, we are doing that next weekend, I suppose.
Okay.
Am I good? You can see me, you can hear me. Yes.
Yeah. Your camera isn't as good as it usually is. I don't understand.
You need a little more light on your face.
Oh, that's maybe that.
If you turn toward the light.
Not too much.
Like we're all doing, right? Turning toward the light.
Not too much. Okay.
Oh, now be nice. Be nice.
Didn't do my. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, darling.
So everything now okay? Maybe I have to shut the shutters behind me. I'm going to do that also because it's still bright in the back. 1 second.
Okay. Are you still around, Bill?
Sorry, everybody. Hello, everyone. Our last time together.
What I did was I was spinning my mouse and it spun me out of the.
I'd say.
Yeah, and we have two listeners on our call-in feature. We have 14 that are watching. What I didn't notice was that Rupert has his webinar right now. And so a lot of our friends are over there watching Rupert's webinar. He has about 150 people in that webinar. And I never know when his webinars are, but it happened last week. It fell on a Thursday. This happened to fall on today. So he's
okay. So you don't get his newsletters.
I do get his newsletters, but I have set my time, so I'm there.
Yeah.
And plus we changed, and plus we went an hour. We're an hour earlier.
Yeah.
And everybody, so that now it's
earlier.
It's probably exactly how it should be.
Of course.
We cannot find happiness in the meeting, yet we can.
Yeah. So I want to just welcome everyone to our final book study of chapter 18, The Nature of Consciousness, The Search for Happiness. And Anneke, just to bring you up to speed, Andrea and I have been just talking about this chapter, and we actually brought in, we were discussing how the effects of the world wars, the First and Second War, and then the hippie era, and all of that activity when we were teenagers, that sort of became it became the focus of our as the teenage years, and the hippie era sort of brought in the search for happiness, the search for
freedom.
That infinite self-identity, which is so, we think of drug addiction or alcoholism or sex or these, or like Rupert talks about in this chapter, bungee jumping and what caused me to think about this was Rupert's walk with Kastrup that he mentions in the very end of this chapter, and how all of these elements are nothing more than the attraction back to the infinite self that we're all searching for. And nobody is left out of that. Everyone's looking for the same thing. Yeah. So that's what we were talking about before you came on. And I just want to welcome you to the final chapter with us. And I know that you have to leave early today.
Well, not as early anymore because you're early. But I still have to have dinner before me.
You're going to be with us for the whole show because
maybe
you're an hour behind us.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So real quick, I just want to welcome you guys that are viewing online. Welcome David and Catherine, and welcome William from Texas and from Canada, and everyone that is joining with us on this last telecast of the Nature of Consciousness Book Club. And real quick, I'm just going to give an overview of what Jenny sent me. I invited Jenny to the show. She is traveling today. I invited Kimberly, and she's also with her daughter, so they couldn't join us. They will be joining us for the new book club that's going to start on April 18th, and the art of peace and happiness. And I've mentioned that in the last show. And I'm also have, I think I have a, let's see, where's that slide I was going to show? The slide is the book. That's this book that we're going to be doing next week. I mean, on April 18th, online, April 18th to May 23rd. And there's a link on here if you guys want to click on the link for the book that's on Amazon. I don't know if you'll be able to click on the link from your website, but or from your chat, but that's the book. And then the other thing that I want to give you guys is I'm going to give you access to a file that goes to a little synopsis that Jenny Beal sent over to me. It's great. I'm going to put it on the Facebook group so you'll be able to see it, but I'm sharing with you right now. If you want to download this file, it's a PDF file from that I converted Jenny's synopsis of this chapter for you guys to take a look at, and you can just click on it if you want to download it or go to the Facebook group. But basically what Jenny she sort of gave an overview of her experience or her take on this chapter. And she says, in this final chapter, Rupert describes how the desire and search for happiness is an automatic consequence of awareness's contracting itself into a finite mind in order to manifest part of its unlimited potential. Mary dreaming that she is Jane. He says the desire for happiness is the gravitational pull of our true nature on itself when it has lost itself in its own imagination, page 185. And he goes on to explain that if we respond to that pull by looking for happiness in objects, what we were talking about just now with Andrea and Anneke, looking for happiness in objects, activities, blissful states of mind or relationships, we are bound to be disappointed, as we all know. Any of those things can appear to bring happiness, but it doesn't last. And then she says it took me many decades, and I think all of us could also concur with this, before we learned that lesson. It's strange because the answer is so simple and obvious. Happiness is inherent in our true nature. Yes. We just have to ask ourselves, what is it that, this is what I love what Jenny said here. In fact, I sent a copy of this to Rupert. We just have to ask ourselves, what is it that has remained the same all my life? What has never been separated from me? Or what is it that knows my experience? Any of those questions take us right there, directly to the source of peace and happiness, not a state of mind, but rather that which forms the eternal backdrop for all states of mind. It's like sinking back into a warm, soft, comfortable, welcoming armchair. No effort is needed. Awareness gently draws you back into itself. Once you experience that, you know it's always available at all times and in all circumstances. And so whenever we experience a feeling of unease, or when we notice a contraction back into feeling, we are a tiny fragment inside a body that is inside a world, that all that's needed is to respond to the gravitational pull. That's what Rupert was saying. We sink gently back into the soft, warm, loving, peaceful field of awareness that is our true nature, the true nature of all beings, and the true nature of all experience. We could describe it as letting go, but even that is a step too far. It sounds too active. It just happens naturally if we allow it. And then finally, Rupert ends the chapter by explaining that this peace is available to everyone and is the foundation of peace within families, communities, and nations. I love this final sentence. She says, all that is required is the mind to notice that its own essential existence is shared with the existence of all beings and things, and to live the implications of that recognition in all realms of life. Love to everyone. Namaste, Jenny. And
thank you, Jenny.
Yes, that was so beautiful. I had to share it with you guys in its entirety, because it just, I mean, when I read that, she sent it to me a couple of days ago. I didn't open it until this morning. And when I opened it, I went, oh my God, this is a teaching right here. So clear. I just loved it. And Anneke, this chapter has so many parts to it, as the other ones that we've looked at, 1 through 17. And this uniquely moves us into what the next book study is all about.
Yeah.
It just moves us beautifully into that, the art of peace and happiness. Yes. And I would love to hear your articulation, your verbiage of what you've thought of this final chapter.
Well, as the whole book, this is beautiful again. There's a few things to it I would like to mention, because what you said, the next book, The Art of Peace and Happiness, I bought it a few weeks ago, and I began with the last chapter. And it is so unreal beautiful, because he says at a certain point that it is about the immediacy of now, and now is what we are. The I am, I is now, is here. And to experience the immediacy of now, like warm water over your skin when you're having a shower, a mug of warm tea in your hands, whatever. It can be silent, it can be active, anything. When we experience the immediacy of now, we experience what we are really, and that's about continuously the discovery that no matter what arises, it is what I am. I get more and more enthusiastic about that, like, ooh. I was also listening to an older video of Rupert yesterday, and it is called Don't Call Off the Search Too Early. Apparently my mind wanted to know, can I stop or not? And then there is a man that says, I do know I am awareness, but awareness, it is said, I, awareness, am happiness itself. I mean, there is this sense of being a separate me in search of happiness, but it all depends on what we take ourselves to be. When we say I, do we refer to this old habitual sense of separation, which
Yes.
of course is awareness arising as that, or do we know ourselves to be I, awareness itself, the open, empty space that is? Well, that man said, I have recognized that, but happy? Well, and Rupert also says happy could also be called peaceful or understanding or beauty. But okay, he was questioning happiness. And then he said to Rupert, are there any questions I can ask myself when I want to discover that what I really am is happiness? And Rupert has this beautiful sentence, and everything drops. It did for me. And he says, do I, awareness, need anything of experience? Wow, man, no. I, awareness, need nothing to be already peaceful, already joyful, already fulfilled, already present, already, and so forth. That one question, do I, awareness, need anything of experience? No. But when you ask this sense of separation, we work our ass off to find peace and happiness and enlightenment and whatsoever. So it is so important to first ask yourself, what am I? And when we know ourselves to be I, awareness, that takes care of everything, so to say.
Yes.
Everything.
Everything.
And then there was this film of Francis Lucille, who is Rupert's teacher. And I don't know the name of that video anymore, but he speaks about the alignment to that recognition. And he says, for thought, it is not to think the untruth, and for feelings, not to feel as if it's untrue, and our lives, living a life not from untruth. And untruth is the sense of separation. That's the untruth. But to remember the truth, and the truth is that when we say I, it is pointing to I, awareness, which is ever present and at peace. And even when we go deeper and deeper, we discover that any experience is made out of that. Wow, amen. Well, that's for me, that's the chapter. And what is also said in the chapter is that it's not a me that has to do its best to deserve truth or whatsoever, but it is grace. It is grace itself that I, awareness, do modulate myself into this sense of separation and individuation and so forth. And it is I, awareness, that seemingly take myself, have that sense of self-separateness back into myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's called grace. And are we ever lucky?
Yes.
Are we ever lucky? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, that's the chapter for me.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
I had the
I've
experience.
got goosebumps all over, you know. Sorry, Andrea. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Stated, and so it has such enthusiasm and passion attached to it that I know that it's your owning. You own that experience as a being.
Yes.
And I feel that that's why this study of this material is so, not just this material, but just as you were saying that you were watching Rupert's YouTubes, you were watching Francis Lucille, and any other teacher that brings you into a more a fuller or a more validated experience of the being. And when I hear you say that explanation, that expression of the I, it gets me excited to hear you say that. I know that that's the truth of what we all are, and the recognition of it is enough to make you want to just jump up and scream.
This morning I was working at the computer and something went wrong. And I got an update and I couldn't get it back to what I wanted. I got so cranky. I was cursing and I was really cranky. And somebody apped me and I was even more cranky, like, fuck off, like, get over, like that. And then I thought, well, that's not, first it's not spiritual whatsoever. And then I thought, no, what if I would feel it completely? Let it be, let it live its life. Because it's not in my body, because there is no contained body. There is no shell called body. I am the empty open space. And that rage was dancing in that, felt furiously. And I started laughing and it was gone.
Yes.
So it's also possible to live it.
Yes.
And that's, well, that's a miracle.
Yes.
So now I'll close my mouth a little bit. Okay.
By allowing it, it dissolved it. It's
but not allow it to make it dissolve. Allow it to really dance its dance.
Yes, and I'm not saying you had an intention to dissolve it there was no thought involved. Right. It was just and when you're in full awareness, you're not thinking, you're just being, and in the being, you're allowing everything, and in the allowing of everything is the dissolving of anything and everything, because everything comes and goes, and it's this beautiful, seamless experience of being able
like
to
the weather,
laugh at it.
It's like the weather. Oh, there is a depression. Oh, there is a storm, and then it's nice and quiet, and then it's boring, and and it's like that. But when we really allow it, that's the alignment with I awareness being already as that, or it goes on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, I will close my mouth now because I could go on for an hour.
I think you could go on longer than an hour.
I think so too.
All day, every day, which is beautiful.
Yes.
Well, and I love what you said a minute ago, that Anneke, that we're so lucky, and I actually want to use that term as well, even though it seems like it might be a little bit not true, because we're all intentional. We're all there's a natural ebb and flow to the perfection of all things. But
how about fortunate?
Pardon me?
About the word fortunate?
Well, I don't mind. I don't mind lucky.
Okay, lucky's fine.
Sounds good. And I like that idea, because it does feel. I do feel lucky. I do feel very, even though it's not luck. No such thing as luck. I do feel, because
of course
this feels like, for me right now, I'm at the front wave, or the front curl of this huge wave that is just really taking this finite experience by storm, with a wave of consciousness to come into the realization of the self, with the enthusiasm that I see in both of you, in Jenny Beal, in everyone that's in the chat, that's everyone that's filling up all of these workshops and retreats that Rupert's doing, and Francis, Lucille, and Muji, and all of the beings that are in the Course in Miracles and Great Freedom, and all of these different vehicles that are being used around the world. Is this, and we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. Very tiny little minority of the rest of the wave that's coming. So in my mind, you guys, all of us, everyone that's watching, everyone that's listening, all the replay guys, girls, I got corrected by that. Guys too much. So when I say guys, I mean beings. All of the beings that are listening to this broadcast and this experience, we're just at the very beginning of this wave of consciousness. And I feel that consciousness, there's no accident for us being here. And whom I'm talking to, you guys, we're all the frontline expression of the truth that is within all beings. And we're here in purpose to share this good news. This is the good news of the Great Awakening, and we're really helping consciousness to awaken itself or to be revealed to itself in any kind of way that we can be used. That's why Andrea is a teacher. She's she's a well-known here in Massachusetts, a well-known instructor and teacher of truth, and she has many people that I know that go to her for understanding of these ideas in consciousness, and she's very helpful to beings that I know. And Anneke, as I listen to you speak, I know that you speak the truth so easily and so effortlessly that I know that you are also an effective teacher of this truth. And I know that many of the beings that are here in the chat room do the same. Arthur and David Spector in his area of expertise, and Henry and all of you beings, we're here as a front wave of the Great Awakening. And for that, I feel very lucky. I feel very blessed. And I do feel also what you would say, Andrea, as fortunate to be part of this experience that we're having right here, right now.
I had this. Thank you, Bill. And you are also a wonderful teacher and a giver of wisdom and a great being, and sharing all this. And just look at the three of us on the screen sharing this. We're sharing, and it's in the sharing that grows it and expands it. And we're all of us have, and I've watched myself, and which is watching you as well, is the same thing. All of us have become better at articulating these concepts, this truth.
Yeah.
And we're helping each other do that. And I'm very grateful and for that. And I also, you say we're on a wave. I feel like, it's really, I'm surfing a tsunami. I feel like a huge thing inside of me. Sometimes I actually move to go to a peaceful place because it's so big inside of me. I don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
And I have such a deep desire to reach so many people. And I have not particularly found my very specific way to do it, but I have felt like in the last couple of years that's what's starting to emerge within me and is going to move out. This is part of that. My practice has changed a lot, and it's been in a constant state of evolution, which if it's a true practice, then it's always evolving into deeper and clearer means of connection. And so as all this deepens within each of us, we're deepening it, we're sharing that deepness and the excitement of it and the enthusiasm of it. At the same time, I feel this great sense of peace. And it has passed all my sense of understanding what peace is. And like I have this huge, wonderful, oh my God, so big excitement inside myself. And almost at the exact same moment, I had this incredibly deep peace about it too. And this and the trust that it's all perfect. And for my mind, who may worry sometimes, well, how are you going to do that, Andrea? How are you going to do that? And I was like, you know what? It's already done. I'm just stepping into it. It's not like I'm going to do anything. The more I just maintain my sense of being, the greater the sense of it all is for me, and the clearer I am, and the more peaceful I am, and the joy is beyond. And it's something that for my whole life, I could just cry right now. I so want it exactly where I am all my life, and I just didn't. I was so locked into that mind and into the fear that I didn't. I wanted it to be true, that it could be possible, but I didn't believe it at the time. And I have I truly do have what I always desired. And I'm so unbelievably grateful and joyous and so full of love. And I just want to share it with everybody. It's not something I want to just hold on to for myself, because I know that all of this happened so that I could share it, because that's why it happened to Rupert the way it did, to share it. We're all here to share this and to make it okay for other people to feel these things and to go through what seems like an up and a down process, or the fears, and help each other through those things by doing it with love, because love is the space in which all that can occur. Because it's love and grace where all mine occurred.
Yeah, thank you for that. I love the way you express that, Andrea, and it's my joy to share also from this place, to share something that I thought was only an idea that was, at first when I read stuff in the Bible, I thought, oh, the Bible is what I was missing. And then I went after the Bible for a while and I realized, no, it wasn't there. But now I have reached that sense and the experience of fulfillment. I've reached that space of the peace that passes understanding, because it's a real experience that I can have on demand, faster than I can click it. I can click it on. And as long as I'm willing to just relax into it and not make it anything, or just what you just said, just the experience of being allows the relaxation into the infinite self to be realized. And then the experience goes along with that self-realization. And it's always expanding. It seems like, oh my God, can it get better than yes? Yes.
Yeah. It's getting better right now.
The last now moment.
It's infinite.
Yes, it's so good. And I asked this question of Rupert when I was in his webinar last week, because this was on my mind. I said, what is it, or who is it, or what is it that has the desire to share this good news, to share this experience, to share this content? What is it? And he really, he as Rupert does, he always pauses for could be even a minute before he says anything after you ask a question, and then he came forth with this beautiful explanation that this awareness of what I am, this I that Anneke speaks so clearly about, wants to share itself. It wants others to have the experience of itself, because it knows it's calling to them. It knows that it desires to surrender and relax back into the same infinite self of its true state, its true nature. And that's the thing that makes us get so excited and enthusiastic and expressing that we are this I. So when I hear Anneke, when I hear you sharing from that place, I get excited. When I see that Andrea wants to share tears of joy of her experience of I feel that it is the Holy Grail, that whenever you first go on a seeking for the truth, you don't realize that it can be this good. And then when you find out that you're just tasting just a little bit of the nectar of this fruit, that it has this ever evolving experience, it's like, oh my God, you gotta, and then you don't even try to share it. You're not an evangelist. You don't have an attachment to somebody, whether they get it or want it or don't. You're actually being who you are, and you're expressing, but not in a nuisance manner. You're coming from this state of presence, this state of peace, and being content with what you are, and accepting everything where it is part of the evolution for everyone else.
Yeah, when people experience that, that's the attraction to it. It's not the words. It's like, if my clients that do come in, and I don't even really want to call them clients, but let me just say the beings that come to visit with me, it really feels more like that, and share this experience together. It's it's way past the words, and they just. I'm not the words. They just feel that it's true for me, that I am living that. And so before, when I first started into all this, I would, be, as you're saying, Bill, I wouldn't call it evangelizing, but maybe at some point in the very beginnings of 20 some years ago, I may have been doing that. But now it's just a conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's coming from the place of, this is true for me. Yeah. And that's where I speak from. I don't sit down and figure out sessions with people. I just sit with them where they are, and we meet at that moment in that, and we work from there all the time. And that's where I keep meeting myself. Where am I right now? What do I need to give myself right now? How can I love myself right now? And so it's doing it for myself makes it so easy to do it for somebody else. And to me, that's the simplicity of it. Yes. It seems like it took, the mind would say it took you forever. And I'm going, well, not really, because I have forever. And, I am the forever. And so what if that's your opinion? It's not mine. It's not my experience. That's just my mind's opinion, or the mind that thinks it's me.
Yeah, but for me, questions around that have also been like, imagine this Anneke being is dying, I'm gone. Would that have been a waste? Not, I mean, this Anneke mind has returned to her natural state of being aware, and now she's gone. What a pity. But I had to look at that, because nothing is ever lost, because awareness just danced as this Anneke being. Mm-hmm. But I had a point in the evolution, like, oh, that's such pity. Now finally I've got it. And now I'm dying, But what you said, Andrea, about meeting people where they are, I don't have a practice. I'm creating art, but also not always. And I just go for a walk in our little village every day, and I bump into people, and then I ask, how are you doing? I'm depressed today. I say, how come? Tell a little bit. Yeah. And then I say, oh, you're going to be fine. So for me, it's very earthly, the questions and the problems and so forth. But because we are where we are and know who we are, that always, like you said, that sheds its light right through it all. Yes. And then they walk through, and they go by, and they say, oh, I'm glad I had to run into you today, apparently. They have no idea why. I'm not speaking about eye awareness and whatsoever. Just simply, Yes. So, but you, Bill, said something about eye awareness wants to awaken everyone. I feel that is a little bit more impersonal. It is the dance of eye awareness, this empty open field that can modulate itself in all these appearances and whatsoever, but it only sees itself. True. And when we look deeper, there is only itself. So it's not even a desire of some higher entity or something. Not that you were saying that, but it is all the miracle of this impersonal dance that just can be anything, is anything, and we have no idea what its potential can be in we have no idea. It can be everything, and it will be. Yes. So that's the way. Yes.
It already is. Yeah. And that's what we keep, that's that realization that we keep realizing. And you say, can it get better? And it's like, we don't even have to ask that, because in the moment before you ask it, the reason why you asked it is because it already was.
Yeah, we are that abundance. We are that abundance. Yes. But I also wanted to say that for me, because of my life history and whatsoever, there has been a lot of challenging stuff also that I need to embrace. So it's not that I'm the whole day continuously beautiful, blissful, in state of joy and whatsoever. That would be really denying what there is too. And I can be angry and fearful and whatsoever, but it is the recognition that I awareness am not limited to a body, and that this body is there is no limit between mind, body, and world. Attention can go anywhere freely. And that when I'm not confined to a body, all these sensations, perceptions, and feelings and so forth can dance in me, what I am as open space. So it is about the embrace of the earthly too.
Yeah.
And that's for me very important.
That's the seamlessness of all of it.
Right.
There's no separation in a feeling or a thought or a sensation or a perception. It's all one thing.
Yeah.
But when I start, there has been a period when I leaned back just as I awareness, but that was not enough. It started to hurt. So it's all inclusive. Sorry, Bill.
Thank you both for being guests on the show for this final chapter, chapter 18.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Thank you, everyone.
I've looked forward to this chapter since we started, and I'm very happy that we went through all 18, all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining with us. Thank you for being part of this collaboration of enthusiasm and the joy that carries the freedom that we share in knowing the experience of our own awareness and the being that we are. And thank you guys that have been watching all along.
Yes, thank you.
Watch this as it's posted on billfree.com. And I look forward to sharing with you on the Rupert Spira's next book, The Art of Peace and Happiness, that I've posted and I gave you as a download. And until April 18th, when we meet again, I would say bon voyage. And thank you for joining with me. I love you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and I am so grateful for you being on this path with me. And thank you guys for sharing your beautiful expressions and sharing your insights into this book with me on the many times that we've shared together as co-hosts.
Yeah, much love.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bill.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.